Welcome back to the final session of these broadcasts. The press conference just ended a few minutes ago next to us here in our studio. And I'm so delighted to have with me the two ministers that really made this happen. And I'm so impressed, and congratulations to both of you. So Minister Irene Vélez-Torres, Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development, Colombia, and Stientje van Veldhoven, Minister of Climate and Green Growth, the Netherlands. You really pulled something historic off here in Colombia and Santa Marta. So I'd like to ask you in brief, because you did share your major outcomes of this conference during the press conference in here. So could you please, in brief, share them with our audience? What are the major outcomes of this conference?
I will start sharing with you that we are going to have a second conference. So this sense of a process is actually guaranteed. And that conference is going to be co-hosted by Ireland and Tuvalu. A second excellent result is also a dedicated scientific panel for the transitioning away from fossil fuels that is going to support particularly countries and regions that want to have that as the next step. And the third outcome that I would like to share is the three main work streams that we have generated in order to activate actions. And those are, first, we are going to be working in pathways to transition away from fossil fuels. We are going to be working on the decarbonization of trade balances, and we are also going to be working on new financial mechanisms that could enhance the transitioning away.
Thank you so much.
And then we are going to make sure that we don't add to the further fragmentation with a new initiative. We're going to make sure that we coordinate between all the initiatives out there to support the work streams that Irene just mentioned. Then, as a further outcome, we want to make sure that we get this message out there, connected to the COP notably, because this entire conference of this coalition of the doers of the willing, we want to make sure that this supports the UNFCCC COP process. That is where it needs to feed in, and we're going to make connections to the COP presidencies to discuss with them how we can appropriately bring this back to COP. We're also going to make sure that we create transparency in all of the countries here about where those fossil fuel subsidies, incentives, revenues are in our socioeconomic systems. Because only if we have that can we see the way how to get away from that and how to transition away from that. We need to know first before we can take action. And then finally, I think you and I are going to make sure that we bring the results of the process and also the specificity of this beautiful process that we have here to all the other fora that need to know about this, because we want to invite others to join us. It is an open coalition, and the more we are, the stronger we are. But already with these nearly 60 countries, I think we are a strong voice and we can do a lot.
So what can you say about the process? Because being here in the studio and interviewing ministers and activists, they all seem to radiate something completely different than at the COPs. So what have you injected in the process?
And maybe I think what we did not do was, I think the biggest difference is that this was not a negotiating conference. We said it from the beginning, this is not about negotiations, this is about dialogue and about jointly looking at what is it that we can do and how can we use our creativity, our collaboration, the science to find new opportunities and new ways to do more. Because the countries who came here because they want to do more. And we just have to make sure that together we find the ways that we can do more. So that was very much the focus, not negotiation, but creating more space for ourselves to do more. This really can-do mentality, I think, was something that also gives a lot of energy. If you hear great examples of how others are doing it, that just kind of generated the energy, I think, that we had here.
I will also say that we wanted to transform the way these conversations have taken place before. So for me, this is a new climate democracy in which we have brought new voices. So we heard the parliamentarians, we heard the indigenous, the peasants, the women, the NGOs, and that gave us like different supports, different angles, and also I think renewed the visions of governments that are usually looking at their own problems, at their own mechanisms without being out there, like really connecting to what is happening. And I also felt that by incorporating them in the conversation, we were also backed up like supported. So we were, okay, this is very brave, sometimes like scary, because it is difficult, and but we are supported, so we can do it because we are not alone. It's not governments alone.
Speaking of new voices, there was a 10-year-old girl in the plenary that gave a fiery speech that made me weep a bit, and I'm sure plenty of the people in the plenary too. So what can you say about the bringing in of even of that younger generation in this process? That I've never really encountered that before.
The choice we make today defined our future. We all know it, but it's better if you hear it from them. And I think therefore having them like the other stakeholders, right holders, in the process, having them there as we talk about how to do more is essential. So it adds very much to what Irene just said, that the way we try to run this process, the inclusiveness was not because we feel they have a right to be included, because we need them to feed into the quality of the decision that we take. And I think the passion that we heard from her was just amazing. So we couldn't have done it without her, I would say.
They really felt it. So what can you say? The final question here is really Tuvalu and Ireland, the combination here with the two islands. We wanted to have the Minister for Home Affairs and Climate Change with us here, but I think he was detained. So what do you think this process will entail, the Irish and the Tuvalu, very far away from each other, but still both islands. They spoke very eloquently about their common denomination. So the handing over and the collaboration here to the next step and the next conference, can you briefly just say something about this process?
I will highlight, first of all, that we really try to make the same balance that we managed to do in the organization of this conference with the second conference. So to make sure that there is a global South and global North collaboration, so we have different views, but also different energies, trajectories, and also aims and problems. We managed, and I think that's very
powerful.
Powerful.
More fun if you do it together, right?
Fun
so
is important.
That was our experience. Much more fun.
That's true. And also, I think their collaboration is going to be crucial in the sense that they're islands and they live similar realities. So that's also going to bring us something of that togetherness of the process.
Yeah, and then of course, we will make sure, as the current co-chairs, that we kick off the follow-up of the Santa Marta conference. We will be indeed presenting the results to other fora. And of course, we will do so also in close cooperation with the COP presidencies, but also with the incoming chairs. So that I think around the next COP, we will formally hand over and then they can really take the reins. But we will also allow them to grow, let's say, into the process, making sure that we hand over in a very warm way. And of course, if there is ever a question, we're also always continue to be happy to support. But I think from the COP process, they will have full control in the preparation to their conference. And then I think they will do the same for those that come after them. So in that sense, we also try to create like an overlapping of presidencies, because that usually helps in making sure that the work continues.
Indeed. On the note of handing over, Sarah, on the note of handing over, we have a little bit of a, well, we wanted to share with you something that you could hand over, like a baton to Tuvalu, but they're actually, well, we'll have to facilitate this separately. But we have this campaign, since you put the science in the heart and center of this conference, which we really appreciate. So we have this golden cap. It's never been given to anybody before, because it is actually the golden cap. So we wanted to have this like a symbolic baton from you to Tuvalu. But now you get to keep it and give it to Tuvalu when you meet the Minister Maina next time. So it's a golden cap to make sure that the science stays at the heart of this process.
We can commit to that.
Absolutely.
I have no doubt. So again, congratulations from all of us to you for this historic, epic event that you pulled off. Oh, here is Minister Maina.
Okay.
Oh, how lovely.
Minister, we were waiting for you to actually deliver this, the silver hat to you.
This is a symbolic passing of the baton. To make sure that science stays at the heart of this process.
Thank you.
And now that we have you with you, with us in the studio, I'd like to ask you, what does this mean for Tuvalu to be hosting this next conference together with Ireland?
Basically, the opportunity to host, not only to bring the world to Tuvalu, but also to ensure that what the science have been talking about in the past many years is correct. So we need to link science and legal frameworks, and of course, they need to hear our stories. They need to see, to breathe the ocean. So we are excited to host the coalition of the willings and the doers who are willing to come and see for themselves.
And we are so delighted and looking forward to joining you in Tuvalu next year. So thank you so much for the work you're doing, and also congratulations to all three of you.
Thank you.
And thank you so very much for this. I have called them the two female warriors. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you.
Round of applause.
Thank you.
And now, I guess you need to rest and maybe relax and maybe have some fun because you've been working so hard. So thank you. Thank you again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let's move on.
So we're here, the final broadcast from the amazing conference that's been taking place here in Colombia, in Santa Marta. And the conference where nations have come together to kickstart the process of exiting fossil fuels. We're very delighted to have with us the Minister of Tuvalu, the Minister for Home Affairs, for Climate Change and the Environment. That's quite a portfolio. And it's Minister Maina Talia, and we're very nice to have you here. What have you made of this conference? Have you felt that it's something that's delivered or starting to deliver something close to your heart?
Thank you for the opportunity. I have been to many COP meetings in the past many years, and I never felt like this. More relaxed, ready to go back home.
Yeah.
No long hours. So I felt that what has been discussed over the past 2 days, it makes a lot of sense. It really connects people to people. We are not negotiating. We're not here to negotiate. We're not here to find positions or demonstrate what's right, what is wrong. We are here to find solutions. So we have created a platform that is fair and equitable for all civil societies, NGOs, indigenous peoples, governments, companies, and so forth. A coalition of the doers, a coalition of the willing, those who are willing to collaborate to ensure that we go back home with solutions.
I think the other thing that strikes one about this conference is I was hearing a little bit from the British climate envoy here, Rachel Kite, and one asked the question, what will you do? And she elaborated in saying that probably there are more countries out there that have had some form of a draft exit strategy in their back pockets for quite a few years, but they've never brought them out before because there was no moment, in a sense, to do it. And this beginning here in Colombia is now giving space to countries to say, maybe we go and look at our drafts that we've got tucked away in a bottom drawer that we never brought out before and see if we can join this kind of initiative. Yeah? It's a new dawn, potentially.
Yeah, definitely, yes. Definitely, yes. I mean, the space that have created for the past 2 days at the conference here in Santa Marta has really give people the assurance that we can do it. We can do it. We just need a platform that really provide the freedom to people to elaborate, to share their minds, their hearts, to share their stories, the challenges, their experiences, and define what does it mean for all of us to transition away from fossil fuel in a manageable way.
Yeah.
So I see the facial impression by people. I are able to engage with countries in a very informal manner. Not like what we do at COP meetings. We stress ourselves out, we stay the whole night, we negotiate, we try to find positions,
Yes.
we compromise. But the past 2 days, people were able to speak their minds, speak from
Yes.
the heart. Because at the bottom line, this is about the very survival of
Yes.
the planet
Yes.
and the survival of human beings.
And what do we say about the fossil fuel treaty initiative? It's played an absolutely critical role in bringing us to this point, yeah?
Tuvalu was amongst the very first countries to be part of the treaty. And this was something that Tuvalu and the treaty members have been advocating for, talk about it for the past few years. So the role of the treaty in stirring up things, the role of the treaty is in ensuring that information are well provided, briefings are well provided, in order for countries to make fair decisions. I think the role of the treaty should be acknowledged. Again, what I have just explained in the plenary and of course with the immediate discussion that we had is that we don't want the treaty to shape the whole discussion in Tuvalu. We want to continue discussing the treaty, but we don't want to narrow down the whole discussion. It's just like what I said, a platform for people to feel free to discuss, to explain their aspirations, to explain their frustrations. So the treaty, on the one hand, will provide guidance, will continue to play that role of escalating or elevating the moral grounds and keeping people accountable, keeping companies accountable. But at the same time, we don't want to stick to one option. Treaty is an initiative. So we want to take into account all other initiatives to ensure that we have a fair, balanced outcome from here, from Santa Marta to Tuvalu, to the Pacific.
Do we feel collectively that this, sometimes the world turns a little bit and things start coming together in ways we hadn't really thought about before? I mean, this terrible war in the Middle East, most countries, instead of saying, oh, we must go and dig for more oil, many countries are saying, no, that just shows we have to get off it. That's one thing. The other thing is the numbers now coming out about the penetration of renewable energy worldwide are truly astonishing and backed by now storage of electricity that's coming much more into people's economies. It seems that the shift is now happening, both politically, geopolitically, where it's no longer just about climate change, it's about energy security, it's about stabilities of economies. It's starting to play into the portfolio of the finance ministers harder. It's an interesting moment for all this happening with this phase out of fossil fuels.
Well, we cannot rule out the geopolitical tensions happening at the moment because whatever we want to call it, either with energy demand, energy supply, whatever, it's all about power. What we have witnessed in the war in the Middle East, it's about power. But I'm glad that people are start talking about solutions. People are start shifting the paradigm. So in that way, we are literally coming to our senses as human beings of how we can resolve this as people who are dealing with their very survival. So responding to the crisis with solutions, I think, is what Santa Marta is all about.
Zebra?
Thank you. And Minister Maina, it's an honor to be here with you on this historic evening when you've just announced the second international conference on the transition from fossil fuels will be held in Tuvalu. And it's great to join. We don't have time again here. I think the points you're making, Nick, are really important because this war turned this meeting into an emergency meeting. Of course, it was already because of the fires and floods and lethal heat that is sweeping our planet. But I think a lot of countries here felt a sense of urgency to start working on how to ensure the fossil fuel phase out, given the price scarcity, given the chokehold in the Strait of Hormuz. The war has really shown people how fragile the fossil fuel system is and how it makes it vulnerable. But different from other wars that we have seen that were oil wars, today this war happened in a moment when renewable energy is cheaper than fossil fuels. When we have technology that we didn't used to have. And we have this incredible uptake in electric vehicles around the world. So phasing out fossil fuels is possible, but we don't just need to build the clean stuff. We also need to, as we heard in this conference, constrain the production of fossil fuels. We need to stop expanding oil, gas, and coal and manage a wind down. And what we're working on at the Fossil Fuel Treaty table under the leadership of Tuvalu and the other 18 countries who are sitting at the table and another 10 countries who have been sitting as observers is what are the mechanisms that can be used for countries to cooperate on some of the critical issues that were discussed here in Santa Marta, on debt, on tax, on trade. And what can those mechanisms look like under a legally binding agreement? Because that's the essential difference with what's happening here and the new conferences and diplomatic track is that the Conference of Parties is and the United Nations Framework on Climate Change was very limited from discussing fossil fuel phase out because there were a lot of vested interests that were really holding that conversation back for decades. And what's happening now is this is a coalition of the ambitious countries like Tuvalu and other Pacific countries who started this movement to ensure fossil fuel phase out become a diplomatic priority. And I think it's really important to recognize that leadership. The fossil fuel treaty proposal emerged from the Suva Declaration that Pacific countries put forward in 2016, 2014, and so for a long time we've seen some of the most vulnerable nations on earth working the hardest to put forward tangible proposals and high ambition on climate change. The International Court of Justice opinion, the 1.5 goal in the Paris agreements, and again today we're seeing that leadership, and we need to tonight remember that leadership, and we're very lucky to be guided by it over the next year as we move towards the second conference in the Pacific.
And finally, a couple of headline things just worth mentioning here. this initiative about with the central banks is quite interesting because if you simply look at how China became a superpower in green energy, and it seems it started in 2015 with a clear plan from the central bank to make sure the banking system in China pulled behind super cheap green loans and no greenwashing, even firing people that didn't actually follow the rules. So that's quite something. And then this one about the fossil-free regions.
Fossil-free zones. Yeah.
Fossil-free zones, there we go. I think you guys are thinking about something like that in the Pacific.
The fossil-free Pacific.
Yeah.
Your new declaration that's
That's the Ricky declaration that we crafted in past weeks, where the Pacific Small Island Developing States were able to meet in Vanuatu to ensure that we prep ourselves for the Santa Marta meeting. So we came up with a declaration of ensuring that a free fossil fuel Pacific. So we will continue to highlight some of the most important things in the call, especially to try to establish an intergovernmental task force for the region in order for us to take actionable initiatives and ways in which we can implement what Santa Marta's outcome will be.
Yeah. And finally, can I just ask about, obviously there's going to be some report to the UN Climate Conference, COP31 in Turkey, jointly with Australia. That seems to be understood that there will be some reporting of the events here.
That's what the co-hosts of this conference, Colombia and the Netherlands, have announced, that they will be reporting.
And do you think that with Australia, I mean, there's close relationships between the Pacific Islands and Australia, that this could be an opportunity to get a few more countries behind this initiative of the fossil fuel treaty initiative and plans to exit from fossil fuels? There's maybe potentially 85 that were in Belém. Maybe 50 more would be 100. 100's a nice number. It's quite a nice number. 99 is a nice number as well. We don't want 99 to be upset, but 100 is very rounded, isn't it? Could we all work together to get some diplomacy going on getting a few more on board in Turkey?
Well, that's always been the plan,
Right.
to ensure that we talk to countries about the treaty. And that's what I can assure you, that's what we have been doing in the past, to ensure that we bring countries on board and to have to become members of the treaty initiative.
But I think one thing that's really important to remember as we leave Santa Marta is that the ideas that emerged here, the plans that emerged here, will live now in multiple forums. We certainly hope that the central banks and international financial institutions will recognize what's happened here and start to address some of the financial barriers. We believe that a lot of the outcomes here will go back inside the UNFCCC process in order to strengthen countries' own national regulations and commitments under their nationally determined contributions and in the global stocktake. And some of the ideas will live in new legal instruments, like a fossil fuel treaty. And these issues, these different areas are compatible. I think the growing support for the fossil fuel treaty is very exciting. And the fossil fuel treaty will help us meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. What we need to remember is that what has been built through the Paris Agreement is critical architecture for climate ambition. But one tool is not enough in order to ensure the phase out of the most powerful and one of the most profitable industries in the history of the world. We're going to need all the tools in our toolbox.
Exactly. Good. Well then, thank you very much both for being with We Don't Have Time. We've had about 2 million viewers today around the world in about 150 countries. So hopefully your messages have got out to a big audience who are clapping right now and jolly excited about.
I hope
what's
they're
actually
celebrating.
happening.
And again, I'm very much looking forward to see the upcoming COP, because I'm sure Santa Marta will change the landscape of discussion.
That's a very
you.
good point. Very good
Yeah,
point, Minister.
yeah.
Thank you very much
you.
indeed.
Thank you.
Great. So we've come to the end of our amazing series of broadcasts over the last 2 days from the high level of this incredible historic conference to phase out fossil fuels, the first conference on the transition away from fossil fuels, hosted by Colombia and the Netherlands. Yeah, we also had the pre-sessions before, where academics and NGOs and civil society and finance experts all came together at places like the University of Magdalena here in Santa Marta to discuss how they can feed new ideas into this governmental meeting. And the amazing thing, I think, has been it's been very quite happy, actually. And people just love the idea they can talk honestly about getting off fossil fuels without some government coming along saying, no, shut up, we don't want to talk about fossil fuels. So this is what's really refreshing. I've got David Elson with me here, who is our COO. We don't have time. What does that stand for, David? Is it
Chief Operating Officer.
Okay, good. And of course, Catarina Rolfsdotter-Jansson, the wonderful co-host with me. I'm either her co-host or she's my co-host. I think it's what a co-host is. Let's just examine, I mean, what did you find personally yourselves exciting about this? Maybe David, start first, yeah?
Well, I would like to commend the courage of the Colombian government and the Netherlands for hosting this conference and for doing it with such courage and with such acumen, really, because this has really turned into a success. And, you know, when you invite people to a party, you're not sure everyone's going to turn up and it's going to be a good party, but it was definitely a very, very good party. And also in the face of the challenges, the setbacks that we've had in the UNFC triple process, which has been sort of watered down or dominated by petrostates and other interests who are pulling us back. So that's my first thought. Let's in this moment of joy, as we just had this final outcome happen, let's not forget how courageous it was at the outset and how uncertain everyone were about what was this going to be. Well, it's still a process, it's still in the making, but very courageous indeed. Yeah. And I would like to thank the Ministry of Environment and the Colombian government for hosting us here and for partnering with us. And their support has been truly amazing over these 2 days as we have broadcasted live from the heart of where it happened. So, yeah.
Good. Absolutely. They've been absolutely superb hosts, yeah. Catarina, do you think the geopolitics have moved? You know, the Earth turns every day, doesn't it? But sometimes you go, and then it just moves a little faster. I mean, if you think it wasn't long ago that we were talking about maybe 20 plus countries coming, you know, and then suddenly we've had a lot more. Maybe something happened in world events that made other people think, I've got to be there. What's your comment?
Second, also, I'd like to comment on
have you got a microphone there?
Yes, I do.
Oh, you've got an in-ear one, have you? Okay, let's have
The
that.
microphone has fallen off. It's been a hectic afternoon here.
Yeah.
So yes, definitely. Of course, the energy crisis and the war in the Middle East has affected the willingness and the urgency to really transition away from fossil fuels. Definitely. And I also wanted to share my highlights or what I think about this epic historic conference. I mean, we have all attended many COPs and at many other climate meetings. But when I stood in the plenary just about an hour ago, and the ministers delivered the outcomes of this event, I actually shed a tear. And I mean, I've worked with climate as a journalist for 25 years. I've never really felt that in my bone, that this is something shifting. And you could feel it in the room. There were other people wiping their eyes, and there were so many rounds of applause, even from the press. So something is indeed shifting, and the trajectory here, and also the momentum because of the climate, of the energy crisis. I think this is a turnaround, and I'm very, very hopeful.
David, we've been broadcasting a lot. Obviously, we want others that maybe missed some of this to be able to, or missed a lot of this, maybe to actually enjoy it as well and learn from it and be inspired. How do they do that?
The viewers can tune in at wedon'thavetime.org and our social media accounts. The handle is We Don't Have Time. So that's where you'll find our content on X, Instagram, TikTok, and wedon'thavetime.org and YouTube, of course.
And where do we go from here?
Oh, where do we go from here? That's a very interesting question. The Dutch minister said really pressed on the inclusivity of the process. And I think that's important to understand. One thing I just thought of today. These 56 countries, they were already quite committed. I mean, they were the ones who came for the party, right? The likelihood of them leaving or skipping out of it, I don't think it's very big. They are committed. The likelihood of more countries joining is higher. And for every country that joins, that in itself has an impact. So I think pushing the inclusivity, growing the coalition is something that's very important going forward. And we Don't Have Time obviously want to do our part in making that happen by sharing as far and as wide as possible about the fantastic thing that has happened here.
Yes, because there is such a thing called campaign journalism, right? I mean, every newspaper in the world has campaigns on various things. Some have them on winter fuel payments for old age pensioners in their countries, but they campaign really hard for it. We have a very simple campaign in a sense. We want to change the dynamics of climate action to a very positive space. That's our raison d'etre. We have no opinion who does it or why they do it, but we do it this way.
Yes.
And we would like to campaign to encourage more countries to be part of this initiative, because this goes to the heart of solving the climate crisis.
Yes, and on that point, what is really important then is to showcase the benefits of the transition, not just for companies and countries, but definitely for them, but also for communities and to emphasize the just transition aspect, and for countries, obviously, for their economies.
Yeah. Catarina, I'm going to give you the last word on the stage because we need to wrap up here.
Well, actually, I would like to thank our team, but I can't see them anywhere. Where is our team?
Where is our team?
Where's our team?
Know.
Team, where are you?
The control room is up.
Oh, there they are. Wonderful, 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 wonderful.
There's one member of the team missing, though. Oh, okay.
The crocodile, as in the crocodile economics.
I think it was kicked off by somebody.
Wonderful people working with us: Victor, Sarah, Marin, Bernardo, and we're signing off here from Santa Marta.
From Santa Marta.
Stay tuned and share these recordings with friends and family and colleagues, because we need to keep moving, and we will, and we don't have time.
Excellent.
Thank you. Over and out.
Bye.
Bye.